There comes a moment in every life where the noise fades. Prayers seem unanswered. Doors appear closed. The phone doesn't ring. The signs vanish. And in that sacred quiet, panic tries to rise. But I want to tell you something eternal and unshakable. When you hear nothing, it means everything is changing. You may think nothing is happening, but that is never true. In the silence, reality is being rewritten. That which you imagined, assumed, and accepted as true has already begun its movement. But it does not scream. It does not beg for attention. It simply is. All true creation happens in the stillness. The earth does not shake every time a seed breaks beneath the ground. The wound does not shout when life begins to form. And your world does not always make noise when it is rearranging itself. This silence is not punishment. It is process. You asked, you imagined, you believed. Now the silence is your sign. It's the evidence that the invisible is working harder than the visible can show. Most people get restless here. They try to force it. They dig up the seed too early, looking for proof. But those who understand the power within them, they rest. They smile in the silence. They know. You don't hear back from the world when you've already impressed the desire upon it. It's like sending out a signal to the universe. Once it's received, it goes quiet, because it is now obeying. And obedience looks like silence. Obedience looks like stillness. Obedience looks like nothing, but it is everything. So if you're in a place right now where nothing seems to be moving, where the silence is louder than any sign, don't you dare give up. Instead say, yes, everything is changing now. I'm right where I need to be. Because you are. This silence is sacred. This silence is evidence. This silence is transformation. Keep the faith, not by doing more, but by doing nothing to disturb the knowing. You imagined it, you accepted it, you became it. Now let the silence deliver it. When life becomes quiet, the mind often interprets it as a sign that nothing is happening. We've been conditioned to equate progress with motion, breakthroughs with noise, and success with activity. So when everything grows still, when the calls stop coming, the results don't show up, and the world around us seems paused, we begin to panic. The silence feels unbearable. But what if I told you that silence is not absence, but arrival in disguise? Silence is not the void. It is the space where divine order is rearranging itself to match your inner world. When you decide to assume something new about yourself, whether it's prosperity, love, health, or peace, you plant a seed. That seed isn't meant to grow in chaos. It grows in quiet. And during that quiet, everything you once knew, every structure that held your previous identity, begins to shift, not in ways you can always see, not in ways the outer world celebrates, but deeply, silently, surely. It's in these moments of silence that the greatest rearrangements take place. Just like a caterpillar enters the cocoon and becomes still, the transformation is unseen, but not undone. The world would think the caterpillar has stopped living, but something miraculous is happening in that hush. The same is true when your life grows still. Your assumptions, once firmly planted, begin to draw unto themselves all that aligns. Circumstances shift, people move, timelines adjust. But you don't hear any of this. To your physical senses, it appears as if you're stuck. But in truth, you're not stuck. You're settling into alignment. What you call silence is not rejection. It's a divine reshuffling. The path you used to walk may close not because it's wrong, but because something more aligned is being paved ahead. The people who drift away are not abandoning you, but making space for new connections. The job that doesn't call back is not delay, it's displacement. You're being relocated into a version of life that fits your inner image. And here's the mistake most make. In the silence, they break their focus. They stop believing. They let doubt creep in and dig up the seed before it blooms. They think the silence is proof that nothing is working, but it is the opposite. When all seems still, that's the time to go deeper within. That's the time to praise the silence, to become grateful for the stillness, to know without seeing that something is moving, something is forming, something is already yours. You don't rearrange a room without silence. You don't build a new foundation with the crowd shouting around you. And you do not manifest the life you've imagined through noise. It's in the still, quiet space where the real magic happens. Your assumption, when fully accepted as true, does not shout. It settles. And in its settled state, the whole universe moves to reflect it. So the next time you hear nothing, feel nothing, and see nothing, rejoice. That silence is not a void. It is the sound of the old falling away and the new being born. That quiet is not punishment. It is confirmation. Something unseen is aligning with what you've imagined. It may be silent now, but your world is shifting behind the curtain. The rearrangement has already begun. There comes a time in your inner journey when you no longer feel the need to prove your worth, explain your dreams, or chase what you once believed was running away from you. You stop writing long messages trying to convince others of your value. You stop waiting for a response that validates your existence. You stop performing for a world that never really noticed the real you. And in that sacred stillness, something profound happens. The world around you grows quiet. This outer silence is not emptiness. It's not loneliness. It's not loss. It is reflection. It is evidence that you have entered into a state of inner fulfillment. You no longer seek outside confirmation because you finally found it within. And the moment you reach that level of quiet self-assurance, the noise of the world fades. You see, the world echoes back to you what you believe to be true. When you walk in insecurity, life mirrors chaos, rejection, and confusion. When you carry desperation, life presents endless obstacles to show you how far away your desire seems. But when you become full inside, when you know who you are, and what is already yours, the external has no more job to do. It becomes still, because it is now aligning. That's why outer silence is not a sign of delay, it's a sign of delivery. The desire has been accepted, the mental work is complete, the emotion has been impressed. You are no longer looking to the world to grant you what you already carry. You've stopped begging for change because you've become the change. The irony is, most people misunderstand this stage. They think something's gone wrong because they don't see results, they don't hear updates or receive recognition. But this quiet is not the absence of movement. It's the moment before arrival. It is the silence of certainty, the peace of possession, the pause before manifestation becomes visible. When a person is truly fulfilled within, they do not react to what the world shows. They do not beg for love. They become love. They do not chase after money. They walk as if wealth is already theirs. They don't try to force attention. They are too grounded to need it. This inner richness changes everything. The world begins to reorganize itself not because you fought for it, but because you no longer need to. And in this state, reality becomes pliable. It bends to your belief. Not because you scream louder than others, but because your quiet conviction carried more power than any outward noise ever could. The world responds to the energy you radiate when you know deep down that you are complete, that you are worthy, that what you desire is not coming, it already exists within you. Possibility exists within you. So when everything gets quiet, when the world stops pressing against you, don't misinterpret the silence. That silence is respect. It's alignment. It's the sound of reality bowing to the strength of your inner knowing. You are no longer seeking, you are now receiving. And in this space of fulfillment, the universe meets you where you are. Not where you begged from, but where you believed from. Let the quiet be your confirmation. You have finally become what you once chased. There is a sacred moment in every creation when all seems still, when nothing moves, no signs appear, and everything feels suspended in time. This is the void before the birth. It is not a place of absence, but of preparation. It is not emptiness, but incubation. Most misunderstand this quiet phase and label it as delay or denial. But in truth, the void is the very proof that something powerful is forming. Just as a child grows in the womb without the world seeing, your desires also grow in the hidden places of consciousness. And just like the mother who does not doubt the child because she cannot see it, you too must learn to trust the unseen. For every desire that is truly accepted as real must pass through the silence before it is born. The world has taught us to fear stillness. We are told that if there's no activity, we are failing. If we cannot see it, it's not working. But nothing could be further from the truth. The moment you plant a seed, the soil goes silent. There is no sound to its growth, no applause for its progress. Yet beneath the surface, life is stirring. Roots are forming, structure is being built, and in perfect time, it breaks through and becomes visible. The same applies to the life you are creating. When you dare to believe in something greater, whether it's love, healing, wealth, or peace, there will come a time, after the assumption is made, when all goes quiet. This is not the moment to retreat in fear. This is not the time to question your belief. This is the moment to rest in the knowing that creation always takes place in the dark. Like the hush before dawn, the void is a signal that the light is on its way. The sky does not shout when the sun rises, it simply transitions quietly, beautifully. And so does your reality. The void is a holy space. It is the threshold between your inner world and your outer world. It is where the seen and the unseen meet and merge. You must not rush this part of the journey. You must not call it failure simply because it does not look how you expected. What you imagined is being formed right now in silence. And if you can resist the urge to interfere, if you can stand still in your belief, it will come forth in a way that is far beyond your comprehension. You see, the void is not meant to scare you. It is meant to prepare you. It is the space where your old self is shed and your new self is born. It is the hallway between what was and what is becoming. And only those who can walk through it without panic will inherit the fullness of their vision. So when you find yourself in that quiet place, do not run, do not question, do not try to force. Simply understand. This is the void before the birth, and just beyond it, what you've imagined is waiting to be seen. There is a moment in the creative process where all effort ceases, not because you've given up, but because something sacred has already occurred. You've imagined it, you felt it, you've accepted it as real. In that moment, the command is issued, not outwardly, not to other people, but inwardly, to the only true source of power, your own consciousness. And once that command is given, there is no need to speak again. Your imagination has already spoken. What follows is often misunderstood. The world grows quiet. No obvious signs appear. The desire doesn't instantly materialize. And for many, that silence is misread as failure. But this silence is not a void, it is obedience. The outer world is now rearranging, adjusting, aligning itself to match the command that has already been given from within. It may appear as though nothing is happening, but in truth, everything is in motion. You are not waiting for the world to decide if you're worthy. You are not hoping someone else will make a choice in your favor. Once the image has been firmly impressed upon your inner self, your work is complete. The silence that follows is not passive. It is sacred. It's the stillness that always comes before birth. Just as the soil says nothing after receiving the seed, your outer world goes quiet after receiving the command from within. But here lies the challenge. The mind grows restless in silence. It seeks validation. It wants signs. It wants movement. And yet the moment you go looking, doubting, questioning, you begin to disrupt the very process you initiated. You don't need to keep repeating what you've already accepted. The power lies not in repetition but in assumption. In living from the end, in acting and feeling as though what you imagined is already true. When a person truly accepts something within, they stop begging for it outwardly. They no longer chase it. They no longer ask, where is it, because they know it's already theirs. Their state of being changes, and it is this state, not their words, not their effort, that reshapes their outer world. Reality is always responding to you, but it responds to your inner state, not your outer effort. And once you've imagined something clearly and accepted it emotionally, your reality begins to shift in response. The silence is just the delay between the invisible becoming visible. Like a letter already mailed, your message has been sent. There is no need to resend it. It is on its way. So the question is not why is it taking so long, but am I willing to rest in the knowing that it's already done? The most powerful people are not the loudest. They are the quietest. Not because they lack desire, but because they know the desire is already fulfilled. Your imagination is not just fantasy, it is instruction. It is the creative act. Once it speaks with authority and conviction, reality has no choice but to comply. So when you hear nothing, feel nothing, and see nothing, remind yourself, my imagination has already spoken, and now reality must answer. There is a sacred process that begins the moment you declare something to be true within yourself. You imagine the life you desire. You feel it as real. You rest in the assumption that what you have claimed already exists. This is creation. Not through effort, not through struggle, but through alignment. Yet after this internal work is done, many fall into the trap of interference. They begin to watch, to wait, to measure the world anxiously, wondering why nothing seems to be moving. But here lies the truth. When nothing appears to be happening, the most powerful thing you can do is rest in faith. Creation is not born out of constant doing. It emerges from the stillness of knowing. The moment you interfere, the moment you begin trying to force results, control outcomes, or seek validation through signs, you weaken the seed already planted within. You dig it up before it takes root. The process is perfect. It does not need your help, only your belief. Doubt is subtle. It does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers questions. What if it's not working? What if I need to do more? These thoughts seem innocent, even responsible. But they come from a place of fear, not faith. They come from a belief that the power lies outside of you, that manifestation is dependent on action alone. But true creation doesn't operate that way. When you planted the idea, when you imagined it clearly and accepted it fully, the process began. The rearrangement of your reality was set in motion. You don't need to push it. You don't need to chase. You simply need to remain in the state of the wish fulfilled. Every time you question, you delay. Every time you beg, you reinforce lack. But when you stand still in knowing, you confirm the truth of your inner command. Faith is not passive, it is powerful. It is the decision to trust the invisible. It is the willingness to rest when your senses scream otherwise. You may not see evidence immediately, you may not feel momentum, but that is the very nature of transformation. Like the silence before dawn, the stillness before birth, there is always a pause, a gap between the inner declaration and the outer manifestation. You must not mistake this gap for failure. You must not interrupt the process by falling back into your old assumptions. You've already spoken it into being. Now allow it to unfold. Trust that it is working even when nothing seems to move. That is the true test. That is the proving ground of belief. Let patience become your strength. Let your stillness be louder than any sign. When you feel the urge to fix, to push, to question, pause. Return to the end you imagined. Feel it again. Know it is yours. And then release it once more. Do not interrupt the process with fear when you started it with faith. Your only task is to maintain the inner conviction that what you have imagined is not only possible, it is inevitable. Trust the silence, respect the stillness, and above all, do not interfere. Creation is already in motion. There comes a moment in every journey when you release the desire, when you no longer hold it with anxious hands, but instead with quiet certainty. You see it clearly in your imagination, you feel it as real, you accept it as done, and in that very moment, you are heard. Not by the world, not by people, not by chance, but by the power that shapes all reality. Once the desired is impressed upon your inner self, the process begins. The command is received, and everything starts to move in response. But what follows next often confuses many. Nothing seems to change. No sign, no shift, no confirmation. The world grows quiet. And because we've been conditioned to equate movement with progress, we start to doubt. We wonder if we were heard at all. We ask questions. We look for proof. But in truth, this silence is not absence, it is alignment. When you can't see anything, it doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means everything is being set in place. The people, the timing, the circumstances, all are being adjusted to match the state you've already accepted as true. You are not waiting in the dark, you are being positioned in the light of fulfillment. But it requires trust, it requires stillness. Most people, in the face of this quiet, fall back into the old self. They panic. They shift their assumptions. They try to speak louder, act faster, or think harder. But that is not power. That is interference. The true power lies in the ability to remain still once you've been heard. Not passive stillness, but knowing stillness. The kind that speaks louder than action. The kind that rests because it knows. There's a sacred rhythm to manifestation. Desire, assumption, fulfillment. But between assumption and fulfillment, there is always a gap, a holy pause. That is the moment you must master. That space is where most give up. But those who endure in stillness receive what they have imagined. Let the silence confirm, not confuse. It is there to show you that nothing more is needed from you. You've already done the work. You imagined, you believed, you accepted. That was the planting of the seed. Now the soil is doing what it always does. Quietly, invisibly, faithfully. There is no need to watch the ground every hour to see if it's growing. It is. Just because you don't hear the wind doesn't mean the air isn't moving. Just because you don't see results doesn't mean creation isn't underway. You must train yourself to trust the unseen more than the seen. That is where real transformation takes place. You've been heard, and being heard by your inner self, by that creative power within you, is all that matters. Now your task is to be still, to remain in the state of the wish fulfilled, to walk as though it is already so. The silence is not the enemy, it is the companion of manifestation. It is the evidence that the outer world is catching up to your inner truth. So breathe, rest, trust. You've already been heard. Now be still and let it come. When life falls silent, when there are no signs, no answers, no visible changes, it's not because nothing is happening. It's because everything is aligning. The silence is not your enemy, it is your confirmation. Every desire you've impressed upon your inner world is being honored. The quiet is not rejection, it is the sacred space where the invisible becomes visible. Your task is not to force, beg, or chase. Your task is to remain still, to trust, and to live from the end. You've already imagined it, you've already been heard. Now let the silence do what it was designed to do. Deliver. Way to say thanks in Neville Goddard's truths. May you walk forward, not with striving, but with knowing. May you rest, not because you've given up, but because you now understand. What you desire is already yours. Remain still and let it come. You are not trying to win the lottery. You are remembering that you already have. There is no trying in the realm of spirit, no force, no striving, just being. To win the lottery is not to beg reality but to master it, not by effort but by embodiment. The numbers, the ticket, the jackpot, they are effects. You must become the cause. Close your eyes and step out of the world you know. Enter the place where the senses grow quiet and the heart speaks. In that inner sanctuary, you must feel the weight of the check in your hand. See your name printed across it. Hear the voice congratulating you. Smell the scent of newness, of freedom. This is not fantasy. This is creation. All that ever was or will be begins in the invisible. So now, choose the scene. Not one of waiting, but one of having. Don't imagine yourself buying the ticket. Imagine yourself after the win. What do you do? Who do you call? Where do you go? Let that version of you take the stage. And once you see it clearly, feel it deeply. Saturate your body in the feeling of wealth. Let your heart race not with doubt, but with gratitude. Say to yourself, it is done. Not as a plea, but as a command. Every time the thought comes, what if I don't win? Return to the end. Let nothing pull you out of your inner knowing. The world may look the same, but it has already shifted. The money is not coming, it is already yours. You are the operant power. You decide when. You decide how. But you do not force it, you do not chase it, you live it within. And by divine law, the world must conform. So hold no fear, release all doubt. Play the part of the one who has already won. Speak only from that place. Act only from that place. And when the bridge of events begins to unfold, whether days, weeks, or months, walk it calmly. You have already crossed the finish line in consciousness. That is exactly how you win the lottery. Not by luck, by law. You don't win the lottery by chance. You win by alignment. What you see on the outside is not the cause of your wealth, it is the result. The numbers, the jackpot, the ticket, they are all shadows cast by your internal reality. And until that inner state changes, nothing outward will move. The external world is simply a mirror, faithfully reflecting back to you what you accept as true within. To win the lottery, is not to beat the odds, but to align with the version of yourself who already has. The odds do not matter to the man or woman who lives from the end. They don't consider probability because they understand something deeper. Reality is not a matter of statistics. It is a matter of consciousness. The one who wins is not lucky. They are prepared, not by effort or strategy, but by state. They have entered the identity of a winner long before the world agrees with them. And because they have done so, the world must comply. The ticket is a prop. The announcement is a confirmation. The real event took place long before, in the silence of the imaginal realm. You must understand this truth. Reality is not happening to you, it is happening through you. Your beliefs are projecting themselves outward in form. People, events, and even so-called random chances. But nothing is random. Everything is a response. Everything is a mirror held up to the inner picture you carry. When you think of the lottery as something out there, you separate yourself from it. You make it something to chase, something to deserve, something to strive for. But the moment you bring it within, the moment you say, "It is already mine," you collapse the gap between desire and possession. There is no distance in consciousness. There is only now. The mirror does not lie. If you see lack in your life, if you feel unworthy, if you dwell in doubt or impatience, the mirror will faithfully reflect those feelings. But if you revise your inner world, if you speak as one who has, feel as one who owns, and think as one who already lives in abundance, the mirror has no choice. It must change. But here is the key. You do not wait for the mirror to change before you smile. You smile first. You do not wait to see the numbers match before you feel the joy of winning. You feel the joy first. You act from the assumption that you have already received. And the outer world becomes your echo. People will call it coincidence. They will say you were lucky, but you will know the truth. You will know that it happened because you dared to believe in what could not yet be seen. You aligned with a truth no one else could see until the mirror revealed it. This is the secret. The lottery is not out there. It is in here. It always was. And when your inner state becomes one with the reality of wealth, the outer world has no choice but to reflect it. That is not chance. That is law. Buying a ticket is merely a physical motion, a symbol of participation in the game, but it is not the true key. The real ticket, the one that actually holds the power to unlock the experience of winning, is not found in your wallet, but in your imagination. It is not paper and ink. It is the scene you construct in your mind and feel as if it were happening now. That is the true ticket. That is what wins. Most people believe that taking action is the only way to change their lives. They rush to play, to hustle, to plan. But the realm of cause is not physical. It is imaginal. It is the invisible world of thought and feeling where all things are first formed. The unseen always precedes the seen. Every fortune, every win, every transformation begins as an imaginal seed, quietly planted in the fertile ground of inner awareness. To imagine winning the lottery is not to fantasize or pretend. It is to engage in the deliberate act of creation. You close your eyes and you step into the reality where the win has already occurred. You hear the words of celebration, see the bank balance, feel the check in your hand, and allow the emotion to saturate your body. You make it so real inwardly that the outer world must eventually catch up. That imaginal act is the true ticket. It holds more weight than any action because it shifts the state from which all action springs. When you persist in an imaginal scene that implies fulfillment, you alter your self-concept. And once your self-concept changes, the world mirrors it with unwavering accuracy. Most who buy tickets never truly believe they will win. They hope, They wish, but they do not claim it as done. Their imagination remains passive, uncertain, filled with doubt, and so they remain in a state of wanting. And the mirror of life reflects their longing, not their fulfillment. But the one who understands the power of imagination approaches it differently. They do not imagine to escape life, they imagine to create it. They know that their inner world is the workshop of reality, and so they construct scenes that match their desire. They don't beg the universe to give. They feel what it's like to have already received. They do not wait to see it before believing. They believe and then see. You must not mistake the outer act for the cause. Anyone can buy a ticket. Few will win. But those who win internally, who create and inhabit the scene of victory before it arrives, these are the true masters. They use their imagination not as a daydream, but as a blueprint. So the next time you hold that ticket, ask yourself, have I already won in my imagination? Have I felt the joy, the peace, the celebration of victory? If not, begin there. Because until you possess it inwardly, it cannot become yours outwardly. Imagination is the true ticket, not a maybe, not a fantasy, but the very power that draws all things into your experience. Use it deliberately, consistently, and faithfully. The moment you do, the numbers start aligning, not because of luck, but because your world has no choice but to mirror your inner conviction. Before the money arrives, before the numbers match, before the check is in your hand, you must feel it, not as a hope, not as a wish, but as a present reality. This is the unseen work. This is the real path to manifestation. You must emotionally dwell in the state of being a lottery winner, long before the outer world shows you any evidence. Because in truth, it is not the money that creates the feeling, it is the feeling that creates the money. To feel is to claim. To feel is to accept. When you feel rich, when you feel abundant, when you feel free, you signal to the universe that this is your truth. And reality, like a faithful servant, begins to shape itself around that internal vibration. Form always follows feeling. It has no choice. The world is not reacting to your words or your actions. It is responding to your inner state. People wait to see results before they allow themselves to feel successful. They wait for proof. They say, I'll feel like a winner when I win. But that is not the law. That is not creation. That is reaction. Creation begins when you move first. When you feel the outcome into being, not after the outcome has arrived. So what does it feel like to win the lottery? Not what does it look like, but what does it feel like? That's where the power lies. Is it relief? Is it joy? Is it peace? Is it the quiet knowing that everything has changed? Let that feeling rise. Let it soak through every cell of your being. Sit in that energy. Walk in that energy. Speak from that energy. This is how you call it in. This is how the unseen becomes seen. It doesn't matter what your bank account says right now. It doesn't matter if people around you laugh or doubt. What matters is the inner climate you cultivate, the emotion you entertain. Because when you feel the truth of something before the evidence, you bend time, you speed the process, you step into alignment with a version of yourself that already lives in the outcome. Imagination alone is not enough. It must be charged with feeling. You can visualize all day, but if you feel lack while you do it, you are not creating, you are contradicting, you are canceling your own power. But when the feeling matches the desire, when you feel wealth as surely as you feel your breath, then you've done it. You've created the invisible mold that the world will pour itself into. Do not wait to feel. That is the trap. Begin now. Imagine checking your bank account and seeing numbers you've never seen before. Feel the tears of joy. Feel the deep breath of freedom. Feel the shift in your identity. And don't just feel it for a moment. Live in it. Return to it. Revisit it every day until it feels natural. Because when the feeling becomes natural, the result becomes inevitable. The money does not lead, it follows. The form does not lead, it follows the feeling. So feel the money before you ever touch it, and by law it must come. Hope is not enough. Hope is a subtle admission that what you desire is still far away. It is a statement that says, I wish it would happen, but I do not yet believe it has. Hope has its place. It may be the spark that awakens you, but it cannot carry you to manifestation. To truly win, to truly create, you must leave hope behind and enter into faith. Not blind faith, but living faith. The kind that sees the invisible and calls it real. The kind that says, I have already won, long before the world echoes that truth. You do not win the lottery by waiting for the numbers to align. You win by becoming the person for whom the win is already a part of their identity. This is what it means to live in the end, to dwell not in the desire, but in the fulfillment. To see yourself not as someone trying to win, but as someone who already has. There is a world of difference between the two. When you hope, you place the outcome in the future, it is always just out of reach, something that may or may not come depending on circumstances. But when you live in the end, you bring the outcome into the present. You clothe yourself in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You walk, speak, and think from the state of completion, not anticipation. Living in the end is not pretending, it is choosing. Choosing to occupy a new reality in consciousness before it has appeared in form. You accept the end as fact, not because the senses confirm it, but because your inner knowing has claimed it. This is the secret of all creation. The world responds not to what you want, but to who you are being. And who you are being is shaped entirely by the state you inhabit. Are you in the state of waiting or the state of having? Are you thinking from your desire or are you thinking of it? Thinking from the end means that you are already there. You are no longer chasing the dream, you are living it internally with such richness, such clarity that the world must reflect it. Most people remain in the state of hope. They buy tickets, they pray, they visualize, but they never shift their identity. They still see themselves as someone who might win rather than someone who has. And so the future stretches on endlessly. The prize is always out ahead of them, never arriving. But when you move from hoping to knowing, from waiting to being, everything changes. You step into a flow where life rearranges itself to meet you at your assumption. You stop asking when it will happen, because in your heart, it already has. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, and it is built not with effort, but with feeling. Steady, unwavering feeling that refuses to return to the old state of lack. So don't hope to win. Declare yourself the winner. Assume the end. Feel it now. Live from it. Walk in it. Speak as it. And the world will follow the pattern you've set in motion. Not because you forced it, but because you dared to live in the end. The greatest block to manifestation is the need to control how and when it will unfold. The moment you start asking, how will it happen, or when will it come, you step out of the state of the wish fulfilled and into the state of lack. You move from knowing to questioning, from faith to fear. But creation does not require your interference. It requires your surrender. Your work is not to figure out the steps. It is to remain in the state. It is to dwell in the end and let the bridge of events appear on its own. Life has a way of unfolding in ways the mind could never predict. The conscious mind wants to plan, analyze, and calculate, but the truth is, manifestation is not logical. It is spiritual. It follows a higher intelligence that works through people, circumstances, timing, and even seeming coincidences. You are not the builder of the bridge. You are the one who crosses it. And to cross it, you must trust that it will appear, step by step, under your feet, as you remain faithful to your vision. Letting go of the how and when is not passive. It is powerful. It is the ultimate act of faith. When you let go, you are saying, I know it is done, and I don't need to interfere. I don't need to beg or question or watch the clock. I am already there in consciousness, and the outer world will catch up. This is not wishful thinking. This is spiritual law. Think of the seed planted in the soil. You do not dig it up every day to see if it has sprouted. You water it, you keep it in the right conditions, and you trust the process. You know that beneath the surface something is happening, even if your eyes cannot yet see it. The same is true for your desire. It is planted in the fertile ground of your imagination. The moment you assumed it as real, you gave it life. Now your task is to sustain that life through feeling and trust, not through force or doubt. Many lose their manifestation because they grow impatient. They begin to question whether it's working. They look around and see no change and start adjusting their belief to match the delay. But the delay is not denial. The delay is simply the unfolding. Just because you cannot see the route does not mean the journey isn't happening. The bridge of events is being built behind the scenes, often through the most ordinary interactions, the smallest conversations, the quietest moments. So detach, let it go, not in the sense of forgetting it, but in the sense of no longer clinging to it. You've done the work by imagining, by feeling, by claiming it as done. Now allow the unseen hand of creation to guide the rest. Live your days with peace, with gratitude, with the quiet confidence of one who knows their reality is shifting. The universe does not need your help figuring it out. It needs your faith. Stay in the state. Don't look for signs, be the sign. Don't count the days, let the days count your trust. When you detach from the how and when, you make room for the miracle to move, and it will, in ways you never saw coming. The path to winning the lottery is not paved with physical effort, but with mental persistence. While the world teaches you to hustle and struggle for every gain, true manifestation bypasses that system entirely. It asks something far more subtle and far more powerful. It asks for your loyalty to an inner scene. It demands that you persist in the imaginal act, unwavering, until that inner reality becomes your outer world. There is nothing casual about creation. The moment you imagine a scene that implies your wish fulfilled, you set a cause in motion. But that cause must be sustained. You cannot imagine once and then walk away hoping it will stick. That is not faith. That is wishful thinking. True manifestation begins with imagination, but it is fulfilled through persistence, through the willingness to return again and again to the scene regardless of what the senses show. Your outer world may contradict your inner vision at first. You may look at your bank account and see lack. You may hear voices around you that say it's impossible. But these are nothing more than echoes of your past thinking. They hold no power unless you give them attention. The only thing that matters is your imaginal state. If you will hold to it, if you will stay faithful to the scene of winning, of celebrating, of receiving, then everything else must bend. Persistence is not hard work. It is focused repetition. It is the quiet, steady return to your inner world where the win has already occurred. You do not need to shout it to the world. You do not need to explain or defend your vision. You only need to live it internally, completely, and consistently. Each time you revisit the scene, you reinforce it. You make it more vivid, more alive, more real. And eventually, the boundary between what is imagined and what is experienced disappears. What once lived only in your mind becomes fact in the world. This is how all creation happens, not through effort, but through the unseen force of mental persistence. Imagine yourself holding the winning ticket. Feel the weight of it, hear the announcement, see your name on the screen. Live the moment again and again until it becomes natural. Let it become the background music of your life. Not something you strain to remember, but something you effortlessly carry with you. This is persistence, not struggle but devotion. Most give up too soon. They try for a few days, maybe a week, and when nothing changes, they abandon the state. They revert to the old story. They allow the world to dictate their belief. But you must reverse that order. You must let your belief dictate your world. And that only happens through persistence. The law is simple. What you persist in assuming will become your experience. Not might, will. But you must persist. Not in force, but in feeling. Not in hoping, but in knowing. So don't ask how long it will take. Ask how long you're willing to dwell in the reality of your desire. Because the moment you make the inner scene more real than your current circumstance, you become unstoppable. And the lottery, it will come not because of luck, but because you dared to persist. Winning the lottery is not about luck, effort, or timing. It is about consciousness. It is about stepping beyond the limitations of the physical world and entering the truth of your inner reality. You don't chase the prize. You become the one who has already received it. Through imagination, feeling, faith, and unwavering persistence, you align with the version of yourself who holds the winning ticket. The moment you live in the end, detached from the how, and feel the outcome as real, the world begins to conform. The numbers, the check, the victory, they are not surprises. They are reflections of your inner certainty. It was never outside of you, it has always been within. Thank you, note. Thank you for listening with an open heart and a willing spirit. May these words remind you of the power you already hold. You are the creator, the chooser, and the cause. Believe it, feel it, live it, and watch as your world transforms. What if I told you that Iran's destiny is not shaped by politics, war, or worldly alliances, but by an ancient word silently unfolding through time? The Bible, misunderstood by many, is not a history book. It is a psychological drama, a spiritual code, revealing the journey of the soul, the rise and fall of nations, and the transformation of consciousness. Iran, in this grand script, is not just a country. It is a symbol, an archetype of inner evolution. You may search headlines for Iran's future, but its true destiny is not written in ink. It is written in spirit. Long ago, the prophets of Scripture saw beyond borders. They spoke of Elam, the ancient region now known as Iran. They declared that what was once cast out would be called back. That which was broken would be rebuilt, not by force, but by awakening. For I will set my throne in Elam, says the Eternal through the prophet. What throne? Not a political seat, but the seat of divine awareness. A rebirth of divine imagination within the heart of a people long misunderstood. And what causes such a rebirth? It is not bombs or treaties. It is vision. It is the belief, consciously or unconsciously, held within a collective mind. A nation rises when its people begin to dream differently. And so, even the turmoil, even the shaking, is sacred. It is the breaking of a shell, so something greater may emerge. We look to Iran and think we see a country, but what we truly see is a shadow of our inner world. Iran reflects the struggle between the seen and the unseen, the old and the new, the flesh and the spirit. This is the real battle. Not in deserts or parliaments, but within consciousness itself. Every person who dares to imagine a healed Iran, a renewed Iran, is already reshaping her future. The Bible does not bind a nation to fate. It reveals the spiritual pattern by which a nation evolves. Elam's exile was not punishment, it was planting. Her return is not coincidence, it is harvest. And so the time of destiny has arrived. Iran will rise not because of policy, but because the divine word spoken of her is awakening. She is a womb of mystery, now becoming light. She is the echo of prophecy, now becoming voice. But do not look with natural eyes. Do not be deceived by appearances. The nation's outer shell may crack, but the seed of God is alive within her. You, yes, you, play a part. For when you lift your vision and see peace, when you imagine light for her people, when you refuse to fear but choose to love, you are writing a new line in her story. This is how destiny is fulfilled. Not by waiting, but by knowing. The Bible was never about predicting events. It was always about revealing your power to cause them. So what is Iran's destiny? It is the same as yours. To remember the divine image, to rise through imagination, and to return fully, gloriously to the throne of God within. Amen. Prophecy in the Bible has long been misunderstood as a rigid forecast of external events, a kind of divine fortune-telling. Yet when one looks deeper, beyond the surface of words and the literal mind, prophecy reveals itself not as prediction, but as pattern. These sacred texts are not declaring fixed outcomes, but are mapping out universal rhythms of spiritual awakening. They unfold the stages of transformation that every individual and every nation must pass through, revealing not what will happen, but what always happens when consciousness evolves. The stories of Scripture are timeless not because they speak of a distant past or a far-off future, but because they mirror the eternal dance of the soul. In prophecy, the outer characters, nations, kings, wars, blessings, and curses, are symbolic. They correspond to inner states of being. Egypt, Babylon, Elam, and Israel are not merely ancient territories, but conditions of the soul, stages of forgetting and remembering divine identity. When the prophets speak of judgment or restoration, they are not forecasting geopolitical movements. They are describing the inevitable cycles of human awareness: fall, exile, awakening, and return. What appears as a curse in prophecy is simply the shadow cast by forgetting who you are. What seems like a promise is not a reward from above, but the harvest of alignment with divine law. These laws are not imposed, they are discovered, just as the law of gravity holds whether one believes in it or not. The laws of spiritual unfoldment shape destiny from within, not without. When the Bible speaks of destruction, it is the crumbling of the false self. When it speaks of restoration, it is the rising of truth. This happens not only in the lives of individuals, but also in the collective consciousness of nations. Each country lives through these patterns: conflict followed by clarity, exile followed by return, forgetting followed by awakening. And it is the imagination, not fate, that determines how long a people remain in each state. When the inner eye opens, when vision changes, the pattern shifts. This is the secret. Prophecy is not a sentence passed down, but a mirror held up. It shows you where you are in the journey of becoming. You are never stuck, but always in motion, toward alignment or away from it. The moment you see this, the moment you understand that prophecy reveals possibility, not prison, you take back your creative power. You realize that your belief, your imagination, Your inner conviction is what breathes life into the pattern. So, when reading prophecy, ask not what will happen to the world, but what is happening within me. The same archetypal movements seen in the rise and fall of empires are happening now. In your heart, your thoughts, your assumptions, this is the real landscape of Scripture. This is the soil where prophecy is planted. The pattern has never changed, but the outcome depends on you. When we read of nations in sacred texts, be it Egypt, Babylon, Israel, or Iran, we are not simply reading about places on a map. These nations are not confined by geography or limited to history. They are living symbols, reflections of consciousness, inner states of the human soul projected onto the world stage. Every nation in the Bible, including Iran, represents a spiritual condition, a state of mind, a collective vibration shaped by belief, thought, and imagination. Iran, anciently known as Elam in Scripture, is not just a physical region. It is a mirror of the internal condition of a people. Its destiny, therefore, is not determined by its borders, its rulers, or its resources, but by the dominant inner state of its collective consciousness. What a nation believes about itself, what its people imagine, accept, and fear. These unseen energies shape the fate that eventually becomes visible. Destiny is not written in the sky, it is written in the heart of man. The soul of a nation is no different from the soul of an individual. Just as a person moves through fear, hope, rebellion, repentance, and awakening, so too does a nation. And like all biblical nations, Iran has its place in the divine drama, not as a passive actor, but as an active participant in the unfolding of universal truth. It has experienced exile, resilience, silence, and prophecy. These are not random historical events. They are echoes of a deeper transformation, a movement of consciousness seeking to remember its divine origin. When Scripture speaks of a nation returning, it means a return of awareness to its source. When it speaks of destruction, it means the crumbling of false beliefs. Iran's ancient mention and prophecy is not a prediction of political fate, but a recognition of its symbolic role in the spiritual evolution of humanity. The throne of God being placed in Elam signifies not a political seat of power, but the reawakening of divine consciousness in a place once thought forsaken. The rise or fall of any nation is not due to foreign policy or military might. It is born of imagination. What the people collectively accept as true, what they hold in the unseen chambers of the mind, is what will outpicture as their world. If a nation sees itself as broken, unworthy, or threatened, it will manifest those conditions. But if it begins to see itself as chosen, healed, and whole, it will draw experiences that confirm that new inner reality. Iran, like all nations, holds within it the seeds of renewal. But the soil is not land, it is the spirit. The water is not rain, it is belief. The sun that causes growth is not in the sky, it is the inner light of remembrance. And when the people of any nation turn within, when they begin to see with the eyes of spirit rather than the eyes of fear, the destiny of that nation changes. Geography may stay the same, but the state of mind shifts. And with it, the fate of a people is transformed. What we observe in the external world is never separate from what lives within us. The events that unfold in distant lands, including the visible tensions, changes, and awakenings of a nation, like Iran, are not disconnected from our own internal landscape. In truth, the drama we see out there is a projection of the invisible drama playing out within human consciousness. The story of Iran, with its centuries of struggle, silence, resistance, and prophecy, is not simply a geopolitical tale. It is a symbolic reflection of the inner spiritual journey shared by all. When you hear of turmoil in Iran, think not only in terms of governments or ideologies, but in terms of internal battles between your high self and the conditioned mind, between truth and illusion, between divine memory and worldly forgetfulness. Iran represents that part of you which has been exiled from its original awareness. cast into the wilderness of misunderstanding, and yet carries the silent promise of return. The unrest and cries for freedom you witness in the physical world echo the inner unrest in every soul, seeking liberation from limitation, fear, and separation. Every soul undergoes a journey much like a nation. There are moments of captivity where one is bound by false ideas and external control. There are seasons of silence where divine purpose seems hidden beneath layers of confusion. There are awakenings, sharp and sudden, where the spirit rises and demands to be heard. This very same pattern is mirrored in Iran's visible experience. What you witness in the streets, the speeches, and the stirring movements of its people is the outward shadow of an invisible inner revolution that humanity as a whole is living. Iran, in this symbolic framework, stands for a consciousness that was once known for deep spiritual insight, cast aside, misunderstood, and yet destined to rise again. And that consciousness lives in you. The ancient wisdom buried beneath rubble and religion still speaks, and it speaks through your own longing to return to truth. You are not separate from the struggle of any people, especially when that struggle is for remembrance, dignity, and divine connection. You must understand that the headlines you read are not mere information. They are reflection. When Iran trembles, it is a call to examine where your own inner world resists transformation. When its people cry out, it is your soul crying for clarity. When moments of peace or revelation emerge, it is the still small voice within you gaining strength. The rise of Iran is not just about a nation, it is about a global awakening. It is a signal that something once buried in consciousness is coming alive again. If you wish to see peace in Iran, begin by establishing peace within. If you desire awakening in that land, begin to awaken in your own mind. The fate of every nation is intertwined with the consciousness of those who observe it. Iran's story is not separate from yours, it is yours, just written in a different language. And when you recognize this, the division between inner and outer disappears, and the healing of nations begins. Divine will is not a decree handed down from the heavens, forcing itself upon humanity without consent. It is not a rigid command dictating punishment or reward, nor is it some cosmic script we are powerless to alter. Rather, divine will is the unfolding of potential through the unseen faculty of imagination. What appears to be fate is not the result of a divine hand choosing who shall rise and who shall fall, but the direct consequence of what we, individually and collectively, dare to imagine as possible and true. The destiny of a nation, like Iran, is not a fixed path, nor is it determined by external factors alone. Its future unfolds from the inner world of thought, belief, and vision held within the minds of its people. Every collective experience begins in the invisible realm of imagination. When a people imagine despair, they manifest decay. When they imagine freedom, wholeness, or spiritual clarity, they begin to experience the reflection of that imagination in their reality. The divine will is not fulfilled despite imagination, it is fulfilled through it. This is a profound truth. God's will and human imagination are not separate, they are unified. The divine blueprint seeks expression, but it requires a vessel. That vessel is the human soul, and its tool is imagination. Prophecy, therefore, is not divine punishment for disobedience or reward for submission. It is the natural outpicturing of thought sustained long enough to become form. It is not God saying, "This must happen," but rather, "This will happen if you continue to see it this way." Look at the conditions of any society, and you will find its dominant imagination made manifest. You will see the stories it tells itself, the fears it clings to, and the hopes it suppresses or allows. In the case of Iran or any nation named in Scripture, the so-called destiny is not fixed because of something written in stone. It is unfolding through the mental and spiritual climate of its people. The future lies not in war rooms or peace treaties, but in what the people believe is possible. This is the creative law at work. Imagination shapes reality. Whatever is held in the heart, whether fear, love, exile, or restoration, must eventually appear in the outer world. The divine will is simply for truth, for awakening, for return to original being, but that return cannot be forced. It must be imagined. It must be accepted internally before it can unfold externally. And so the call is this: imagine higher, not just for yourself, but for your nation, for other nations, for the world. See peace where others see conflict. See healing where others expect decay. Believe in renewal when the world preaches collapse. This is not fantasy, it is alignment with divine will. The sacred plan is not waiting in the clouds. It is waiting in consciousness, ready to take shape the moment imagination becomes fit. Destiny is not dictated, it is designed in the unseen, and that design flows through you. What we often call an ending is not the final word, it is the beginning written in another language. The collapse of systems, the unrest within a nation, the shattering of traditions or institutions, all of these are not signs of failure, but signs of transition. Endings are never what they seem. They are thresholds. And the seeming chaos or conflict, especially in a nation like Iran, is not the destruction of purpose, but the dismantling of false identity, to make room for something far greater. When a consciousness rooted in limitation, fear, or control begins to dissolve, it does not go quietly. It trembles, it shakes, it clings. And this trembling, this shaking is what we perceive as unrest or decline. But look deeper. Beneath the surface noise, something ancient is dying so something eternal may rise. The old must fall so that the new may be born. And this is not new, it is the divine pattern repeated throughout time in individuals and nations alike. Iran, with its long and rich spiritual history, holds within it layers of forgotten wisdom. What appears on the surface, political tension, cultural conflict, external suppression, is only the outpicturing of a deeper spiritual transformation. The structures that can no longer carry truth are being broken, not out of divine wrath, but divine mercy. They are falling to make way for a rebirth. Every spiritual awakening is preceded by a death. The death of illusion, the death of false power, the death of self-perceived built on fear or conformity. A nation, like an individual, must let go of what no longer serves its higher calling. And while this process may look violent or uncertain, it is sacred. It is the labor of a new identity being born. Think of a seed. It must fall into the ground. It must crack open in darkness. Only then can it grow. So too does a people awaken. So too does a consciousness rise. Iran's destiny, written in the patterns of prophecy, is not one of endless suffering, but of divine restoration. But restoration always comes through release. And release always looks at first like destruction. Do not fear the end. In it is the blueprint of a greater beginning. Do not judge the chaos. It is the storm before clarity. The conflict you see is not a sign of doom, but a sign that the old consciousness is no longer sustainable. Something higher is being demanded. And that demand is not being issued by any government or foreign power. It is coming from within, from the soul of the people, from the voice of God planted deep in the collective heart. So let the old pass away. Let what must die be buried, because beneath the ashes is not despair, it is life. The phoenix of spirit will rise, and the nation, reborn not in the image of the world, but in the likeness of divine memory, will stand again, not as it was, but as it was always meant to be. The words of sacred scripture are like seeds sown deep into the unseen soil of consciousness. They are not idle utterances, but living deposits of potential planted long ago in the collective psyche of humanity. These seeds wait, not in vain, but for their season, for the right conditions of belief, vision, and expectancy to bring forth fruit. Today, in the story of Iran, we witness a harvest. The ancient words are blossoming, not by chance, but by the steady unfolding of a divine spiritual law, the law of gestation and harvest. Imagine each prophecy, each declaration of return and restoration, as a mustard seed placed in the garden of human soul. Over centuries, it lay hidden beneath layers of culture, language, exile, and silence unknown to most. Yet no harvest is ever lost, for what is sown in consciousness cannot be destroyed. It remains present, waiting for its season. And so, in Iran, a land once called Elam, those seeds are awakening, reaching for the light of renewed belief in a future beyond fear or forgetting. Just as a farmer trusts in the unseen growth beneath the surface, knowing that roots are deep and unseen, so too the spiritual law trusts in the power of the word. You may not see it germinating, but the seed responds quietly to water and warmth. The Bible's words, spoken thousands of years ago, are now nourishing the inner life of a nation wearing the garment of both ancient wisdom and modern longing. To those whose eyes are spiritual, you can already see the green shoots. Movements toward justice, dignity, and a reconnection with higher identity. This is no mere happening. It is a law, the spiritual law of sowing and reaping. The visible fruit is not the result of strategy alone, although political shifts and the courage of leaders matter. They matter because they reflect a deeper truth, that the people's imagination has changed. The word once planted has now become vision, mobilized by the inner soil of desire, belief, and expectancy. Harvest always follows seed time, but only when the conditions have ripened. The fruit born today in Iran may take many shapes: the language of unity and healing, the vision of sovereignty rooted in soul integrity, the remembrance of ancient covenant returning to guide modern heart. None of these appeared by chance. They are the evidence of spiritual gestation, of invisible seasons in consciousness that preceded the visible movement. Like wheat emerging in the spring, the nation bears the fruit of its spiritual history. If one listens to the scriptures, one finds that nations are always invited to participate in a living, divine economy. They are called to till their inner grounds, to claim the word as seed, to nurture it through prayer, imagination, and expectancy. The destiny of Iran is not a relic of prophecy. It is the fruition of a word held in the discipline of spiritual law. To deny its unfolding is to deny the power of unseen gestation at work in every human heart. Let this be a reminder: no word ever spoken in spirit is ever lost. Each one is a seed that can outpicture in time. And as we witness Iran's journey, its awakening, resurgence, and hope, we see the blueprint of spiritual harvest come alive. For in truth, the promise always was, when you sow the word, you shall reap a harvest. And this is happening now. What we see unfolding in Iran today is not merely political or cultural. It is profoundly spiritual. It is the outpicturing of ancient seeds planted through divine vision, now blossoming through the law of imagination, belief, and inner awakening. Iran, like all nations in Scripture, represents not just a land, but a state of consciousness. The struggles, transformations, and triumphs are reflections of a deeper human journey. The eternal pattern of exile and return, death and rebirth, silence and prophecy fulfilled. This is not the end. This is the awakening. The destiny of Iran is not dictated by history but by vision. And when that vision is aligned with divine law, with spiritual clarity, and with the boldness to imagine a new identity, then the prophecy is no longer just words. It becomes reality. What once seemed distant is now unfolding before us, not by force, but through the quiet power of consciousness. The message is simple, yet eternal. Divine will is not forced upon us, it flows through us. As individuals awaken, nations rise, and as nations rise, the world remembers its divine design. Sincere thank you. Thank you for taking this journey with us on a vision, truth, and sacred remembrance. Your time, your heart, and your listening spirit matter more than you know. May you continue to awaken, may you continue to imagine boldly, and may you always remember, the word is within you. You've walked this life believing some things are possible, and others are miracles, that some are lucky and some are chosen. But let me tell you a truth so powerful, it can rearrange the very fabric of your reality. There is no magic, there is only law, and you are the one using it whether you know it or not. From the moment you dare to feel something as though it's real, you activate the unseen mechanics of this divine universe. It may look like coincidence, it may appear as a miracle, but it is neither. It is simply the result of a law older than time, responding to your inner vision. Imagination is the womb of all creation. Every empire, every love story, every healed body, every fortune built began in the unseen. It was first felt, then believed, then received. Not by force, but by alignment. The outer world is only ever echoing the state you maintain within. So if you feel lack, even with money in hand, lack will follow. But if you feel abundance, even while counting your last coin, the universe must unfold more to match it. You don't have to chase. You don't have to beg. You don't have to try so hard. You have to feel as though it is already done. That's the law. When you walk as though the answer is already yours, when you speak as though it's already finished, when you rest as though the battle has already been won, then what felt impossible becomes inevitable. This is why so many call it magic, because it moves without visible effort, because doors open without knocking, because things appear when logic says they shouldn't. But you know the secret. You've always held it, and now you remember. So I ask you, what if you stop trying to control the how and just assume the result? What if you speak as the one who already has it? What if you live not in hope, but in knowing? Because when you do that, it may feel like magic to the world, but to you it's just divine law doing what it always does, responding to who you are inside. And that is the real miracle. Everything you experience, every moment that unfolds in your life, is first born in imagination. The world you see around you is not happening to you, it is being shaped by you from the inside out. What seems magical to others is simply you walking through the blueprint you have already designed in the quiet chambers of your mind. It is not chance, it is not luck, it is law. Imagination is not a fleeting daydream or a distraction from reality. It is reality in seed form. Every great architect begins with a vision, long before the first stone is laid. Every artist feels the completed masterpiece before the first brush touches canvas. In the same way, your life takes shape in the unseen realm before it ever appears in the visible. What you entertain in imagination, especially when infused with feeling, becomes the instruction you hand over to the divine machinery of creation. There is a silent intelligence that governs all things, and it does not respond to words. It responds to your state of being. And your state is formed by what you consistently see and feel in imagination. If you dwell in thoughts of lack, fear, or failure, the outer world must mirror that back to you. But when you make a habit of imagining yourself as abundant, loved, successful, no matter your current circumstances, you shift the blueprint. And because the law is unfailing, the outer world must eventually align with the image you've constructed within. It may feel strange at first to close your eyes and live in the end, to feel what it's like to be already wealthy when the bills are still due, to act as if your body is whole while you're still healing, to speak as though you are chosen when you've been overlooked. But this is the act of creation. This is the divine work. You are not pretending, you are creating. You are laying down a new pattern in consciousness, and all of reality bends to reflect that pattern back. Others may look at your life and say you're lucky, it's like magic, but you'll know better. You'll know that the seemingly impossible occurred because you dared to believe it was already so. You'll know that the world shifted because you shifted. And while others wait for proof to believe, you'll believe until proof has no choice but to appear. The secret is persistence. Imagination must become your dwelling place, not your occasional escape. You must visit the feeling of the wish fulfilled until it no longer feels like a wish, but your natural state. From that place, you won't just hope for change, you'll expect it. You'll live as though it's already done, and in doing so, you'll collapse the distance between dream and manifestation. The world is a mirror. It reflects not your effort, but your assumption. Change the blueprint, and the building must change. There is no exception to this truth. And once you truly grasp it, you'll realize there is nothing magical about your success. It was yours the moment you imagined it. The outer simply obeyed the inner. So dream boldly, feel deeply. Walk through your imagination as though it were more real than what you see, because it is. And the moment you do, what once felt like fantasy will rise to meet you, and the world will call it a miracle. Feeling is not a passive response to life. It is the very language through which you communicate with the unseen power that shapes all things. While the world teaches you to react emotionally to what you see, the truth is far more powerful. Your emotions are signals, frequencies, vibrations that precede and shape what you experience. They are not consequences of reality. They are the creators of it. You may think that thoughts are enough, that affirmations alone can bring change. But thought without feeling is like sound without resonance. It doesn't reach far. It doesn't imprint itself into the fabric of existence. But when a thought is infused with emotion, when it's felt deeply and sincerely, it becomes a command to the universe, a declaration, a vibrational signature that says, "This is who I am. This is what is real to me now." And that is what the law responds to. Not to your words, not to your hard work, not even to your long waiting, but to your inner state of emotional certainty. You may say you desire abundance, but if you feel poor, scarcity will continue to appear. You may say you want love, but if you feel unworthy, rejection will seem to follow. Not because you are doomed, but because the signal you are sending out is being answered with absolute precision. The moment you feel it is real, you collapse the distance between your current state and your desired outcome. You no longer just want it, you become it. This is the secret. When you imagine and then embody the emotional reality of the wish fulfilled, you are not just daydreaming, you are creating. You are shifting the frequency of your being, and because all things in the universe respond to frequency, your outer world must eventually reshape itself to match your inner conviction. It is not effort that moves mountains. It is not striving or struggle. It is belief. It is the unwavering, unshakable emotional experience of already having. And this is why you must be careful what you entertain. Every time you worry, you rehearse a reality you do not want. Every time you feel grateful before the thing arrives, you accelerate its appearance. The law is blind to your words and conscious intentions. It only sees the signal you broadcast with your emotional state. So the question is never, how do I get this? The true question is, can I feel it now? Can you feel the peace of already being loved? Can you feel the confidence of already being successful? Can you feel the freedom of already having what you once thought was out of reach? If you can, you are not hoping anymore. You are creating. You are calling it into being. Not with force, but with frequency. Feeling is not weakness. It is not noise. It is power. It is law in motion. And the more you align with the emotional essence of what you desire, the more life will begin to reflect it back to you with astonishing accuracy. So practice feeling the end. Dwell in the joy, the gratitude, the fulfillment of your desires as though they were already yours. Because in that moment they are. Emotion is your access to the infinite. And once you master it, there is nothing you cannot bring into form. There is a sacred order to the universe, a law that governs all creation. It is quiet, it is invisible, it is constant, and though you may not always perceive its workings, it never fails. Just like gravity does not need your permission to function, this divine law does not require your awareness to operate. But once you become conscious of it, once you begin to live in harmony with it, life begins to unfold in a way that seems effortless, even miraculous. Think of a seed. You plant it in the soil. You don't sit beside it all day, pulling at it, begging it to grow. You trust the process. You know that within that tiny seed is the perfect blueprint for a towering tree. You water it, you nurture the environment, but you do not try to force it open. That would destroy it. You allow the law of life to take over, silently, intelligently, and without fail. This is how manifestation works. What you plant in consciousness, through imagination and sustained belief, will take root. It begins beneath the surface of your awareness where you cannot yet see results. This is the part that tempts people to doubt. They say nothing is happening or it's not working. But that's only because they're judging the process by appearances. They want to see instant proof, yet the law doesn't cater to impatience. It answers to faith. Every desire you hold is a spiritual seed. When you imagine it, feel it, and assume it is already done, you plant it in the fertile ground of your inner world, and from that moment on, the law begins its silent work. You won't hear it move. You won't see it rearranging events, people, and circumstances. But it is doing exactly that, with precision far beyond your conscious mind. You are not required to figure out how it will happen. That part is not yours to manage. Your role is to believe, to persist in the assumption of the wish fulfilled, to trust the unseen even when the visible says otherwise. The law doesn't need your help, it needs your alignment. The moment you interfere with doubt, worry, or the need to control, you disturb the process. But when you remain faithful to the end you have seen within, the law moves everything necessary to bring it into form. Often, people confuse silence with inactivity. But the most powerful forces in existence are often invisible. Gravity, wind, thought, love. They move entire worlds without being seen. So too does the creative law that responds to your inner state. It does not speak, it does not shout. It simply obeys, flawlessly, quietly, perfectly. This is why patience is not passive. It is powerful. To wait with inner conviction is to say to the universe, I know it is done. And that knowing is what allows the law to complete its work without obstruction. Just like the seed that knows how to become the tree, your desire knows how to become your reality. Without your struggle, only your faith. So when you feel uncertain, remember this: the silence is not the absence of progress. It is the space where the miracle is forming. Trust it, honor it, and above all, believe. The law is always working, and it never misses its mark. There is a profound secret hidden in plain sight, one that few ever truly grasp. To manifest your desire, you must assume it is already fulfilled, not hope for it, not wish for it, not work endlessly to get it, but live from it. This means you adopt the inner state of the person who already has what they once longed for. You embody the version of yourself who is no longer seeking but resting, no longer striving but resting in certainty. When you assume the wish fulfilled, you shift your inner world, and that shift sends a powerful signal to the universe. You are no longer asking, you are thanking. You are no longer lacking, you are abundant. You no longer feel separate from what you want. You have merged with it, and the law that governs all creation must reflect that state of being back to you. Most people live in a state of waiting. They wait for the relationship before they feel loved. They wait for the money before they feel secure. They wait for the success before they feel confident. But this is backwards. The outer world only mirrors the inner world. If you wait to feel it, you will wait forever. But if you dare to feel it first, you summon the very conditions that bring it into reality. So how do you live from the wish fulfilled? You begin by seeing yourself differently. You walk into rooms with the confidence of the one who already received the opportunity. You speak with the assurance of someone already chosen. You rest at night not in anxiety, but in the peace that comes from knowing it is done. Your actions are no longer desperate or forced. They are the natural expressions of someone who knows their desire is already theirs. This assumption is not delusion, it is creation. It is choosing to trust the unseen more than the seen. It is aligning your inner world with the reality you wish to experience, even when the outer world hasn't caught up yet. And when done persistently, it must catch up. It must conform. Your imagination is the workshop, your feeling is the blueprint, and your assumption is the energy that sets the law in motion. When you feel as though it's already yours, you give the universe no room to do anything but reflect that truth. It is not your job to figure out the how. That part belongs to the unseen intelligence that knows exactly how to bring your vision into form. Your job is to remain faithful to the end you've imagined. Every time you return to the feeling of already having, you water the seed you've planted. Every time you assume the best, you accelerate the process. It is not effort that brings your desires. It's alignment. When your thoughts, emotions, and identity match the reality you want, you become magnetic to it. So assume it, walk like it, talk like it, rest like it. Because when you live from the wish fulfilled, you are no longer asking for permission from the universe. You are declaring what is already true in your inner world. And that declaration is irresistible. It must be answered. There is a truth so profound, yet so often overlooked. Everything that happens in your life originates from within you. Not outside, not from fate, not from chance. The experiences you encounter, whether you call them luck, coincidence, or miracle, are merely the reflection of your inner world. You are not at the mercy of external forces. You are the source. What you believe, feel, and assume within becomes your outer reality, and with divine and unerring precision. Most people live believing that life happens to them. They think opportunities show up randomly, that blessings fall on some while others are forgotten. But what they don't see is that the world outside is nothing more than a mirror. It has no power of its own. It only reflects back to you the image you consistently hold in your consciousness. If you believe you are lucky, life will reflect back circumstances to affirm it. If you feel unworthy, the world will show you proof of that unworthiness. Not because it is true, but because it is your belief. This is not punishment. It is law. A mirror does not judge, it does not distort, it simply reflects. And the mirror of life works the same way. It returns to you not what you want with your words, but what you are in your inner state. That is why change must begin within. Waiting for the world to change before you feel different is like staring at a mirror and waiting for your reflection to smile before you do. It doesn't work that way. There is no external power because there is nothing outside of consciousness. Everything begins as a thought, a feeling, an assumption. Every so-called miracle is the natural unfolding of something that was once accepted within. When you feel blessed, life must deliver blessings. When you live as if you are chosen, the world treats you as such. When you walk in confidence, opportunities that match that confidence seem to appear. But they are not appearing, they are being drawn to you by the frequency you are embodying. This understanding is both liberating and sobering. It means you are fully responsible, you are the cause. And with that responsibility comes power. The power to rewrite any part of your life. If your relationships don't reflect love, go within and become love. If your finances reflect lack, change your inner conversation about money and worth. When you correct the root, the branches must follow. It is impossible for the external not to respond to the internal. The world is not separate from you, it is you expressed in form. When you understand this, you stop fighting circumstances and start transforming consciousness. You stop chasing and begin attracting. You stop begging and begin declaring. The power you seek was never in others, in events, or in time. It has always lived within you, quiet, constant, and ready to be directed by your belief. So never again say, that was just luck, or it's out of my hands. Everything is within your hands because everything is within your mind. The miracle you are waiting for is simply your inner shift made visible. Change your self-concept and the entire world will change with it. There is no external power. There is only your power expressed through the law, shaping reality with divine precision. The path from desire to manifestation is not paved with effort, struggle, or endless striving. It is built on persistence. Not persistence in action, but persistence in assumption. The outer world will constantly tempt you to doubt, to waver, to adjust your inner vision based on what you see with your physical eyes. But true transformation comes through those who remain loyal to what is unseen, who persist in believing that what they have imagined is already theirs, even when there is no physical evidence yet to support it. Desire alone is not enough. Many people have dreams, wishes, and longings that never come to pass, not because they were impossible, but because they were abandoned too soon. A desire becomes destiny when it is held unwaveringly in consciousness, when it is nurtured in the inner world, regardless of how long it takes or how much the outer world appears unchanged. The universe does not respond to momentary wishful thinking. It responds to deep, consistent inner knowing. You may not see the results immediately. In fact, you may be met with the opposite of what you're assuming. That is the test. The outer world, like a mirror, takes time to catch up to the image you formed within. And just like a seed planted in soil takes time to sprout, your desire must pass through a season of invisibility. During this season, your faith is tested. Will you continue to live from the end even when nothing has changed? Will you still assume success when failure appears to surround you? Most give up in this phase. They allow the outer to dictate the inner. They reverse the flow of power. But those who persist, who assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, who return again and again to their inner vision, they are the ones who bend reality to their will. They are not stubborn with effort, but with belief. And it is this quiet, steadfast persistence that persistence is not about repetition alone. It's about loyalty. It's about becoming so identified with your desire that there is no longer a question of if, but only when. You no longer chase it because it has become you. You speak as though it is done. You act in alignment with the end result. And this alignment creates a magnetic pull that draws people, opportunities, and circumstances into your world that match your assumption. There will be moments when doubt knocks on the door, when the facts seem too loud, when logic says it's impossible. That's when you must go deeper. That's when you must remind yourself that the only truth is what you persist in assuming. The world has no choice but to conform to that which you refuse to let go of. So remain loyal to your vision. Ignore the noise of the world, trust the process even when you cannot see the path. What you persist in assuming with conviction and emotion must harden into fact. It is law, stay the course. Live from the end, and let your persistence turn your desire into destiny, not by force, but by the quiet power of unwavering belief. You were never meant to live by effort alone, nor to chase life as if it were separate from you. Everything you seek is already within you, waiting to be expressed through your imagination, your feeling, your assumption, and your unwavering persistence. What seems like magic to the world is, in truth, the perfect and silent operation of divine law, always responding to your inner world with stunning accuracy. You are not a passive observer, you are the creator. Assume boldly, feel deeply, persist faithfully, and know this: the universe is already aligning itself with your belief. Thank you for listening. May you walk with quiet confidence, speak with power, and live from the truth that it is already done. Stay blessed, stay aligned, and never forget, the unseen is more real than anything you see.